Hello again. So we're back to my story of my awakening. I know the last time, in the last video, I talked about the time the beginning of my awakening, when I just kind of threw everything away. And I want to kind of, talk about that a little bit. Growing up in my family and the type of person that I am, very, very headstrong and stubborn. We form an idea and that is it. And even now I tell people, I spent 30 years creating a very dense body. In more ways than others. I worked in a steel shop, a lot of protein, you know how that goes. But the actual feeling of releasing everything, I never knew what to expect when other people talked about, the Holy Spirit, or in the Bible when you see that. It's not something I ever felt. And to be honest with you, when I looked around at other people, I didn't see it. One of the things that led me to letting go of everything was that at the core, we were all the same. I was supposed to be a Christian, and we were all supposed to be Christians, and we love Jesus, and we love people, and love is our number one mission, and to help others, and to do all this. And not only would I look at myself, but I'd look at other people, which is essentially looking at yourself, and I'd see that, if I help somebody, genuinely help somebody, it's going to be rare. And if I do, it's not at the expense of my steak dinner. Do you see what I mean? We have all these Christians and believers, and this can be said of pretty much all faiths and religions, by the way, that have all these really nice vehicles, they have these really big houses, and they really good jobs, and they got these cliques, but people are still starving. We still have homeless people in America. There are people who have stress because they can't decide which of their 30 cars they're going to drive on a Sunday afternoon. And people are still homeless in America. And you even mentioned the idea of everybody having equal opportunity, and those people that got those 30 cars start freaking out, like, oh, you're taking all my stuff. Well, do you really need 30 cars? Come on. I hate to upset anybody, but let's be real. If people are starving and homeless and are doing without, come on. We can share a little bit more. But anyway, so I was seeing this, and I was witnessing this, and it was really eating at me. And all the while, the type of faith that I had created within myself was more about everybody else being wrong than it was about me being right. It was their wrongness justified my rightness. It validated my being right. And I really got tired of being, judge, jury, and executioner. It takes a lot out of somebody to hate. And I'm talking about the hate that we don't even realize we're giving off. And it just wore on me. I got tired of looking at my coworkers and saying, you guys are just of the devil, because they were decent, good people. So that's a big part of what led me to reevaluate my beliefs. Now, in addition to that, my buddy was bringing in these podcasts we were listening to at work. I worked at Trader Joe's as a sign artist, so we were in the sign room majority of the time, and for all you other Trader Joe people, we actually had a big, big room all to ourselves. Close the doors, we could listen to whatever we want, do whatever we want, pretty much. So he was bringing in podcasts by like Timothy Leary, Alan Watts. We were listening to Radiolab. At first I was like, oh, this stuff is stupid. But you listen to it long enough, and it's like your brain starts growing new pathways and new ways to think. So all this was going on. We weren't going to church because the organized religion pretty much, it was done for me. I was done with it. Had been members of a church that had tons of money and really evaluated the money. So like one of the things that happened, and this really bothered me, is I think it was either due to the floods or due to some snow, services had to be canceled one Sunday. Can you believe they actually sent out a letter in the mail asking for people to make it up and go ahead to send in their tithes in? Now, I'm a little old school. I believe that tithes and offerings are meant to be feeding the poor and clothing the hungry, and bare minimum having a place for like-minded folks to meet, but not to pay off $10 million funds. People can't make it. You can't make it. I just thought it was silly, because it was additional offerings. It wasn't just the normal offerings they were asking for. They wanted more. And I probably, and I did, put way too much emphasis on the money thing. But I just think there's a little more accountability to people who claim to be followers of Jesus if people are starving and hungry and you have homeless people laying on the benches in front of your building at night, and you're worried about all your nice TV monitors and paying all your staff, your full-time song leaders. I mean, it was kind of odd, but hey, that's America. We can make everything about money, can't we? But anyways, and that's not a statement that they are wrong or right. These are the things that were bothering me from my perspective at the time. And so all these things were coming together pretty much like the perfect storm. And I just had to let it go. And then, as soon as I let it go, and I gave it up, that actual act of letting go of all that preconceived belief and faith, and just emptied the vessel, I cannot explain to you the freedom that I felt. For the first time, I no longer felt bound by guilt, shame, sin. I felt free. I had this crazy amount of energy coursing through my body, and it was just amazing. I have had similar experiences since then, but for me, that was what others would say were the Holy Spirit, or was the Holy Spirit. And it's one of those things, I don't know if I can ever really describe it properly. Just, I guess, imagine. Okay, here's a good way. If you've ever drank a 5-hour energy shot for the first time, a lot of people get nauseous. Well, forget the nauseous, but that heart racing and that whole, you feel just the energy coursing through your veins. It was like that, only jacked up a little bit. So I've emptied my vessel out. I say, okay, nothing's there. Well, where am I supposed to go now? And so that's kind of what leads me to the next part. I found some material called the Cassiopean experiment. It's some lady who did some channeling through the Ouija board. Well, I don't follow or recommend the material now, but it was great as far as helping me to change my perspective and how I thought of things. But I soon found there to be a lot of really kind of negative vibes going in that material. You have to decide for yourself if you want to look it up, go for it. I have a problem with any material that immediately wants to discredit other material. I think the world is big enough for all teachers and lessons to exist, because we're all at different places on the walk. We're all on the same journey, so what lesson may resonate with one may not necessarily resonate with another. And there's a reason for this, and I will tell you that later when I start getting into my the teaching or the discussion of different topics. So that's the first thing that clued me in. But at the same time, one of the things that I was really drawn to was the Edgar Cayce material. Now, a lot of people have seen or heard about Edgar Cayce on the History Channel specials. They call him the Sleeping Prophet, and they always focus on his prophecy. The thing about Edgar Cayce is, and with any good person who tries to predict the future, they will all tell you that the future is only determined by the hearts and minds of man. You can't really know or predict the future accurately. Cayce said this in all of his readings whenever they asked for like future stuff. He said it was always determined by hearts and minds of man, and it can change. It was just a possible future. But what Cayce, his interesting stuff to me, which was not the prophecy, was the ancient history, Atlantis. All this stuff really resonated. A lot of it resonated with that story that I was mentioning that I had come up with in my mind. And then I really liked the fact that he was using his gift for helping people with their medical issues, health issues. But really, the best thing was ancient history, the reincarnation. His idea of Jesus and the Creator were very intriguing to me. He put Jesus on our level in that he was our elder brother, if you will, and he said the unique thing about Jesus is that he was one of the Creator's sons and the only one who went through he created our universe, in charge of it, and he was the one who came and went through all the human incarnations himself. So he willingly fell, if you will, and ascended back to Christ consciousness. And I'll get more into that later, but it really resonated with me. You can look it up, Amelius, Adam, Joseph, Jesus. Just look it up, Edgar Cayce. Tons of material out there. So that really helped guide me in my early time. So I was avidly taking that in and researching different things like that. And it was very early on. Now, a lot of things have happened to me in this journey in the last 3 years that I can't remember the exact timing. The little synchronicities, I'll probably forget a lot of those. But rest assured, there's tons. So it's going to be really hard. I'm going to try and hit the major beats of different things that I've experienced, and then while I'm there, I'll probably explain a little bit about what that was or what it meant. Just a little precursor until we get done with these videos about my journey to where I'm at today. So one of the first things that I remember happening was I had a dream. I was in the Edgar Cayce stuff, pretty heavy into that, reading. Was probably getting into a little bit of the government conspiracy stuff at the time, but not too heavy with it yet. I've always been distrustful of the government, so I've always not believed any of their stuff. Because if you do any of your own research, it's really hard to buy anything they tell you. But I was in the Edgar Cayce stuff, and I had this dream, and in this dream, I was dressed in a red shirt, tan pants, hat, like an archaeologist, and I was in a place that looked like Egypt, like golden, tannish rock structures. And in it, there were diggers, like cleaning and excavating. One of the excavators had broken through the surface, and this bright light had was glowing. It's like, oh, we found it, and they came down, and I went and looked, and I came to it, and it was just like glowing so bright, and I just knew that it was the truth. It was like I drew it out a couple times, and I had a little stick that said the truth. I mean, I didn't see that. I just had the knowing. Now, this was a symbolic dream, and I recognized it for being a symbolic dream. I had gotten far enough into the Edgar Cayce stuff to understand that. There's still a lot more for me to learn. And so, I guess shortly after that, I had another dream. Another symbolic dream. And it was me and my wife. And we were traveling in our current car along a highway. Now this highway, I mean, it's kind of hard to say it, but it was just like in space. Like we were going up this hill, if you can imagine, and straight in front of us, you see this big planet. It was Earth. It was so vivid in colors, and I mean, like glowing blue, like electric blue. And I remember looking off to the left, seeing another, well, Earth. And it's like I saw two Earths. Then over here, there was some other stuff going on. It was beautiful. We come up over the hill, and there's this four-way crossroads. And we stop, and I'm just like stretching my legs, or for some reason. And well, I look to my left, and there's a lady's house there, and a lady's coming out. She's like, you gotta get in your car, you gotta hurry up, you gotta go. Those men over there are bad men. And I looked at the crossroads, and there was a red truck to my right, and a van on the left. And I could see the men in the driver's seats, and they were very, very angry looking. So I hurried up and got in the car, and took off. Next thing you know, Catherine and I hit the atmosphere of the Earth and dream. Now, again, this is full of some symbolism and symbols, but there's a lot of very simple things to learn from this. And when you are having dreams, if you can remember your dreams, I highly recommend writing them down, recording them in some way, and thinking about them, meditating upon them, and you should probably be able to figure out the meaning on your own pretty easily. I will say there's a difference between dreams and visions, and I will tell you more about that later. These were just symbolic dreams. They were very important. I remember them well, not as well as I do the visions that I've had. So basically what the dream was telling me is that my wife Catherine and I came to Earth together, that there were forces opposing us, or seemingly opposing us, that wanted to obstruct our entry to Earth. And I knew that once we hit the almost like the Earth's energy field, time started again. Because before there is no time. So I actually arrived 4 years before Catherine, and I believe that was to be a little older, a little wiser, a little more prepared, so that I could help her grow when we met and got married. So that was the meaning of the dreams for me. I haven't really had anything happen in my life to change that. It still holds pretty well. These two dreams alone were just life-changing to me. They just changed I was like thrilled. This is amazing. When you have an important dream, you know you have an important dream. And that's all I can say. Some people don't remember any dreams, some people remember some, but when you have an important one, you know it. You just have to be willing to recognize it. So I was like, wow, that's just amazing. And if that's all the things that have happened to me, I would have been a happy camper. That was more than I could have ever imagined in my life. Now, obviously, some other things were going on at the time. One of the things was I was very, very angry with Christianity at the time. Uh, for a while there, I saw them as like purposely trying to deceive people and us for money, power, gain. And that was really silly because churches are people, and there are lots of good people who are doing the best they can with the situation they're in to live right. They just don't know any better, or they have been taught differently, or that's just the lesson they've chosen. And there are lots of good things that come out of churches and good people. So it was really silly for me to get angry, and I got over it. It lasted a few months, and I realized that yes, there are men in power in churches that are taking advantage of other people, but that's not a reflection on the people, at least not in most cases. I mean, after all, I was one of those people, and I wasn't necessarily evil. I was just asleep. So, those are some of the first couple of experiences I've had. Now, I had another experience shortly after that. I think it was in March. Following that December, I was out walking the dog, our dog Booth. I can't remember if we had Zoe. Zoe's a little Beagle Dachshund mix. I don't know if we had her yet or not. It had snowed that day in Tennessee, which is rare, and it was very cloudy. So I'm outside, and I'm looking at the stars. By this point, I'm quite familiar with aliens to some degree. I mean, I've always acknowledged that they probably existed. I never could see why God would create such a large universe just to have it sit empty. It just doesn't make any sense to me. So that wasn't really a big stretch. So I was a little familiar with the government cover-ups, and for anyone who awakens, one of the first steps you go through is that conspiracy theorist stage, where everyone's out to get you and everything's a cover-up. It's a very early level of the growth phase. Some people never leave it. I mean, that's where they choose to stay. Others move past it and see things differently. But I was kind of in that phase, Like I said, I've always been kind of anti-government anyways. And I'm out there walking the dogs, and I look up in the sky, and I notice that, a star seems to be moving. It's very, very faint. I'm like, I'm seeing a shooting star. I better make a wish, right? Well, I looked closer and saw others moving. I was like, that's a lot of shooting stars. Am I seeing like some meteor shower or something? And, well, I took a look back, and I just kept looking, and I noticed that there's probably 30 or 40 of these stars, and they're all moving different directions. It was almost like something out of Star Wars. Dots of light just going all different directions at different speeds. Some would stop and slow down. Some would just, stop and start up again. And then I was like, wow, I can't be seeing this. I mean, this is crazy. And then I looked around the sky, and I realized, well, they're only in this part of the sky. And the sky was overcast. There was no moon. I mean, there was no seeing through the clouds. You could see the clouds. Now, we live close to an airport, but we live so close that you could see all the planes that were coming in and out, and the lights. You could see the difference. And to be honest with you, there's no way there'd be that many planes in such a small area at one time without a big, big problem happening. So, I was like, oh, maybe I'm going crazy. So I asked Catherine to come out and check it out, and sure enough, she saw the same thing. Now, this lasted for about 45 minutes to an hour. And now that was also huge. That was... I don't remember well, everything that I was studying at the time. But I do remember, to me, it felt as though it was either angels or uh, they were letting me know that I was on the right path, or it could have been all these different races of aliens meeting and discussing things. Now that seems crazy to you, but if you've ever looked into the work of like David Wilcock or Zecharia Sitchin, there's just so much. Maybe you've seen Ancient Aliens, which I actually think is kind of silly. There's so much material out there, I couldn't begin to tell you where to start. About aliens and being here and influencing mankind, you know. Obviously everyone knows about these little gray aliens that are abducting people. Then there's talk of the reptilians everyone's heard about, but then you also have Pleiadians and Assyrians and those from Orions, and then you have Andromedans, and then you have Arcturians, Lyrians. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. So if you begin to study aliens and groups like that, starseeds, light workers, you're gonna have a lot of material to cover. I'm not gonna lie, and in my opinion, a lot of it is silly. For me. For you, it could be gold. Follow whatever resonates with you. Explore it, learn it. If it feels good, feels right, feels what you need to be into, then go for it. I'm all for it. So, those are my first 3 major experiences, some of the things that were going on mentally and internally. I gave up God, found God by emptying the vessel and allowing what the Creator really wanted within me to be within me. It was like He was laying breadcrumbs, and He or whoever, and leading me. Now, I've been into a lot of things, this kind of research and metaphysics and the New Age stuff goes in many different directions. So you spirit guides, angels, light workers, star seeds, aliens, the conspiracies, all that good stuff. It goes everywhere, so you have to be careful, and I'm looking into all of it, all at the same time. And while I emptied out my previous beliefs in religion, pretty much everything, I was slowly being built back to a new understanding of what God is and the role that Jesus played in this grand play that we call life. So all that's going on underneath what I've already told you about. This is a time in my life when I would say that I didn't have any beliefs, just the acknowledgement of all possibilities. So that's my perspective. I didn't want to be beholden to one thing, that so much to the point that I couldn't objectively observe something else. So that's where I've been. That's where I'm going. Pretty sure there's some things I'm leaving out, and like I said, there's always those synchronicities that lead you to a particular book or lead you to a website. For me, a lot of my understanding of who I am came from, well, it's kind of like this. I would have thoughts in my mind, and I'd be like, well, that's just ego, or that can't be right. And then I would find a book or be led to a website, and I would read it, what I was thinking, the exact same thing, or someone else's experience, or someone said, well, this is how this is, and this is what this is. And I'm like, hello, confirmation in a big way. That's kind of how my whole thing works here. And we'll continue on to the rest of the story. So, to sum up, I have emptied out the vessel, following the breadcrumbs, exploring every area of research I possibly could, channeling, everything in New Age, metaphysics, everything, aliens, conspiracies, starseeds, lightworkers, all that stuff I mentioned earlier. I'm studying all of it, and it's all starting to make sense. So I guess that's where I'm going to leave the video this time. This was early enough in my experience that my family hadn't thought that I've gone crazy yet. I was keeping a lot of it to myself, but I was finding a lot of it to be very exciting and new. But I didn't have a problem telling everyone at work. I'm very vocal in that. I just didn't want to tell my family too much right away. I'm still working at Trader Joe's, and I am by no means where I need to be spiritually to help other people yet. I'm still suffering from ego and wanting to be better than other people. I have a different perspective. I'm not as bound by negativity. Things are making more sense to me. I'm not feeling stress, but I still have a long way to go. And there's a lot of the lessons that I'll be learning in the next 3 years. So I'm going to end the video here. I appreciate you for watching and stopping in. Please share and spread. There's lots of other good things that are coming that I'm going to be talking about in the journey. I haven't really even gotten to the tip of the iceberg about the things that I've recently experienced that many of you are experiencing yourselves already, or have been, or will be. So, hey, let's just build a community of like-minded people. And with that, I will say good night, and thank you for watching. Namaste.